The city never stopped moving. Cars rushed by in endless streams, horns blaring, tires splashing through the slush of last night's snow. People hurried past, bundled in thick coats, their heads down, lost in their own worlds. No one paid attention to the man sitting on the park bench, his coat worn thin, his boots barely holding together. Sam had long since stopped expecting anyone to notice him. But she did. A small gray pigeon, speckled with white, always found him. Every morning, as the city stirred awake, she landed a few feet away, tilting her head in that curious way pigeons do. Waiting. Watching. The first time it happened, Sam barely reacted. Another bird, just like the rest. But the next morning, she was there again. And the next. And the next. At first, he ignored her. People did the same to him, so why should he be any different? But hunger had a way of making a man generous. One morning, he broke off a tiny piece of stale bread, tossing it toward her. She didn't hesitate. With a quick flutter, she hopped forward, pecked at the crumbs, and then, strangely, looked up at him. Not afraid. Not just hungry. Just looking. It became routine. Sam, sitting on his bench. The pigeon, waiting nearby. Every day, he saved a little something for her. A crust from an old sandwich. A few scattered fries from a discarded takeout bag. Once, even a bit of granola bar that someone had thrown away, still half-wrapped. She ate it all without question. And each time, when she was finished, she stayed. No one had ever stayed before. Sam started talking to her. At first, it was just muttered words, barely more than a whisper. "Looks like you're hungry again, huh?" She bobbed her head. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. "You and me both, little bird." Day after day, he spoke. About the weather. About the people rushing past. About nothing at all. And the pigeon, she listened. Or at least, that's how it felt. The streets had been Sam's home for too long. Long enough to forget what a real home even felt like. Long enough to stop hoping things would change. He had learned to move like a ghost, blending into the background, ignored and unnoticed. That's what life did to you when you had nothing. When you were nothing. But hope, yes, he'd started calling her that, was different. She saw him. She perched on the bench beside him, fluffing up her feathers against the cold, unbothered by the chaos around them. She wasn't just looking for food anymore. She waited for him. Chose him. In a world that had abandoned him, that meant something. It had been years since Sam had felt warmth that wasn't from a cup of cheap gas station coffee. Years since he'd looked at another living thing and felt like he mattered. Yet here she was, a tiny creature no bigger than his hand, giving him something no one else had. Connection. He found himself saving extra scraps, just in case she came. He sat on the bench longer, waiting, even when the cold bit through his layers. And every morning, when she fluttered down beside him, he smiled. Just a little. Just enough. But the world was still cruel. It didn't stop for soft moments like these. Sam knew that better than anyone. And he had no way of knowing that, soon, the same little pigeon he had cared for would do the unthinkable. She would save his life. Sam didn't always live like this. There was a time, years ago, when he had a warm bed, a job, a future. He had once walked these same streets with purpose, blending into the rush of morning commuters, just another man in a city of millions. But life had a way of unraveling, thread by thread, until there was nothing left to hold on to. One bad month turned into 2, then 6, then a year. Jobs disappeared. Bills piled up. Friends, once close, became distant. Then came the eviction notice, the moment he realized he had no safety net, no one to catch him. And just like that, the city that had once felt familiar became something else. A maze of cold sidewalks and locked doors. A world of people who saw him but never really looked. At first, he fought it. He told himself it was temporary. That he'd get back on his feet. That someone, anyone, would help. But help never came. The shelters were always full, the streets always dangerous. Time blurred. The seasons changed, but his situation didn't. He learned the rules of survival. Which alleys were safe to sleep in. Which public restrooms wouldn't kick him out. Where to find a meal when his stomach twisted in hunger. But no matter how much he adjusted, no matter how much he tried to blend into the background, the truth never changed. He was alone. Until her. Hope wasn't like the other pigeons that fluttered through the city, pecking at scraps, scattering at the first sign of movement. She was different. She waited for him. Every morning, in the same spot, she appeared, perched on a bench, tilting her head, her tiny black eyes locked onto him as if she understood. At first, he thought it was a coincidence. Just a hungry bird looking for food. But even on the mornings when he had nothing to give, she stayed. She never flew away, never lost interest. And so, one day, he spoke to her. "Guess it's just you and me, huh?" She fluffed her feathers, watching him. He chuckled, a sound he hadn't made in months. It started small. Just a few words here and there. But words turned into conversations. Quiet, one-sided talks about his past, his regrets, the life he once had. He told her about the home he lost, the nights he spent lying awake, wondering where it all went wrong. She never answered. But she never left, either. And somehow, that was enough. He named her Hope, not because he had much of it left, but because when she was around, he could pretend. She was the only living thing that looked at him like he mattered. Through the brutal cold, the long nights, the days when his stomach ached from hunger, she stayed. When people walked past without so much as a glance, she remained. When the city turned its back on him, she never did. He began saving food for her. Even when he had almost nothing, he always kept a few crumbs in his pocket. Because in some strange way, feeding her felt like feeding a part of himself, the part that still cared, still hoped, still believed in something good. And as the days stretched on, he began to realize something. She wasn't just surviving. She was waiting. For him. And in a world that had long since forgotten his name, that meant everything. The city never truly slept, but at this hour, it held its breath. The streets were emptier, the rush of traffic reduced to the occasional whoosh of a passing car, tires hissing over wet pavement. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows against the walls of the alley, their dim yellow glow barely reaching where Sam lay, curled against the cold brick. The scent of damp cardboard and stale cigarette smoke hung in the air, blending with the faint metallic bite of winter. Sam shifted beneath his tattered blanket, pulling it tighter around his shoulders. The night was colder than usual, the wind slipping through the gaps in his layers, sinking deep into his bones. He was used to it by now, numb to the sting, immune to the discomfort. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, but exhaustion weighed heavier. His limbs ached, his eyelids drooped. His body begged for rest. But something wasn't right. Hope had landed beside him, as she always did, but she wasn't settled. She wasn't pecking at crumbs or fluffing her feathers against the cold. She was alert, rigid. Her tiny body twitched with unease, her head jerking from side to side. Her dark eyes scanned the alley, darting toward the mouth of the street, toward the shifting shadows beyond the light. Sam barely noticed at first, too drained to care. But then. A sound. Soft. Faint. A deliberate step against wet pavement. Not the aimless shuffle of a drunk. Not the hurried click of a passerby heading home. Slow. Calculated. Sam's muscles tensed, but he didn't move. His breath shallowed. His instincts, dulled from years of being ignored, sent a quiet warning. Stay still. Stay small. Don't be seen. Hope rustled beside him, her wings shifting restlessly. Another step. Closer this time. A shadow detached itself from the others, peeling away from the darkness. A man. Hood pulled low, shoulders hunched. His face obscured. His hands shoved deep into his pockets. But Sam recognized the posture, the way the man's head moved slightly from side to side, scanning. Looking. For what? Sam knew the answer before he wanted to admit it. Him. He forced himself to stay relaxed, to breathe evenly, pretending to be asleep. Maybe if he didn't move, the men would pass by. Maybe he wasn't a threat at all. But Hope knew better. She let out a sharp, sudden coo, a warning. Not her usual soft chatter, not the content murmur she made when settling in for the night. This was different. Urgent. Alarmed. Sam's pulse quickened. He cracked one eye open, just enough to see the men had stopped. Just standing there. Watching. The air between them thickened, stretched tight with something unspoken. Then, movement. A slow reach into his pocket. A shift in weight. A subtle turn of his wrist. A glint of something metallic under the streetlight. Sam's blood turned to ice. He knew that shape. The dull gleam of steel. A knife. His mind raced, trying to grasp the situation, trying to piece together what was happening. Why? Was this a mugging? A random attack? Did the men think he had something worth stealing? Or was this worse? It didn't matter. He had seconds to react. But before he could move, Hope did. She burst into the air, wings flapping hard, her small body launching forward with surprising force. She didn't flee. She didn't fly away to safety. She flew straight at the man. Straight at his face. Her wings beat against the air with frantic, desperate energy, her tiny claws scratching, pecking, fighting. The man cursed, stumbling back, raising an arm to shield himself from the unexpected attack. And in that split second, Sam moved. His hand darted toward the ground, fingers closing around the neck of a discarded glass bottle. He gripped it tight. Ready. Because this wasn't over yet. The moment hung in the air, stretched thin and fragile, ready to snap. Sam's breath hitched. His fingers tightened around the cold glass bottle, the smooth surface slick with condensation from the damp night air. He could hear the faint squeak of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, the sharp rush of blood roaring through his veins. The man with the knife wasn't moving fast, but that was the problem. He wasn't in a hurry. He had the slow, measured confidence of someone who had done this before. Someone who knew there was no need to rush. Hope wasn't having it. She swooped again, diving straight for the man's face, her wings a blur of frantic movement. She pecked at his forehead, his ear, her tiny claws scratching against the fabric of his hood. The man flinched, cursing under his breath, swatting at the air. But she didn't stop. She darted in and out, forcing him to stumble back, throwing off whatever plan he had. And in that split second, Sam moved. He pushed himself up from the ground, his legs screaming in protest, the cold making his joints stiff and unsteady. But adrenaline was stronger. He lunged forward, gripping the bottle tight, swinging it without thinking. Glass met flesh with a sickening crack. The man staggered. His head snapped to the side, his hood slipping, revealing a face shadowed with stubble, eyes wide with surprise. He hadn't expected a fight. He hadn't expected resistance at all. Sam didn't wait. He shoved forward, using what little strength he had, sending the men stumbling back. The knife clattered against the pavement, spinning once before landing in a shallow puddle. For a moment, neither of them moved. Hope flapped back to the bench, perching there, her chest rising and falling fast, her tiny body still tense. Her head tilted, watching, waiting. The man cursed again, louder this time, his face twisted with something between rage and disbelief. His hand hovered near the knife, fingers twitching. Sam's grip on the broken bottle tightened. They stared at each other. A choice. The man could go for the weapon. He could try again. But Sam was ready now. And he wasn't alone. Hope cooed, a sound soft, yet sharp, like a warning. The man heard it too. His jaw clenched. His eyes flickered from the knife to the bird, then to Sam. And then, he stepped back. Just one step. Then another. He turned, disappearing into the dark. Sam didn't move. Not for a long time. His hands trembled, his breath coming fast and shallow. His legs felt weak, barely holding him upright. But he was still here. Still breathing. And so was she. Hope fluttered down beside him, her tiny feet clicking softly against the pavement. She ruffled her feathers, then looked up at him, tilting her head. As if asking, "Are you okay?" Sam let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something stir deep inside him. Something that had been missing for years. He was alive. Because of her. Sam stood frozen, his pulse still hammering in his ears. His fingers clenched the broken bottle so tightly that his knuckles ached. His breath came in shallow gasps, clouds of it curling into the cold night air. The alley was silent now, just the distant hum of traffic, the soft rustling of wind against the brick walls. The man was gone. Vanished into the dark like a bad dream. But the fear lingered, thick and heavy in his chest. It wrapped around his ribs, squeezed his lungs. Hope fluttered down beside him, her tiny feet clicking against the pavement. She let out a quiet coo, tilting her head, watching him. Sam swallowed hard. He could still see the knife lying there, glinting under the flickering streetlight. One wrong move, 1 second slower, and it could have been buried in his ribs. He had spent years thinking he had nothing left to lose. That nothing could touch him anymore. But tonight, something shifted. He almost died. And someone, something, fought for him. His knees buckled. He sank onto the bench, his body shaking, exhaustion pressing down on him like a weight he could no longer carry. His vision blurred for a second, but he blinked it away. He wouldn't cry. Not here. Not now. Hope hopped closer. She pecked at his sleeve, a small, insistent gesture. A reminder. I'm still here. Sam let out a shaky breath. He reached into his pocket, fingers brushing against the last few crumbs of bread he had saved for her. He held them out, his hand unsteady. Hope hesitated for only a moment before pecking at them, eating greedily. Something about the movement, the simple trust in it, made Sam's throat tighten. She didn't have to stay. She didn't have to fight for him. She was just a bird. She could have flown away. But she didn't. And now, as she sat beside him, her small body warm against the cold night, Sam realized something he hadn't allowed himself to believe in a long, long time. He wasn't alone. The thought hit him hard, and ached deep in his chest. He had spent so many nights pretending he didn't care. That the world could forget him, and he'd forget it right back. But Hope had seen him, truly seen him, when no one else had. And tonight, she had done more than that. She had saved his life. His grip on the bottle loosened. His hands shook. He set the jagged glass down, staring at it for a long moment. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he pushed it away, kicked it toward the curb, where it wouldn't hurt anyone. He had a choice now. Keep surviving. Or start living. Hope fluffed her feathers, then hopped up onto his knee, settling there like she belonged. And for the first time in years, Sam let himself believe in something again. The sirens faded into the distance, swallowed by the endless hum of the city. The alley was silent again, except for the soft rustling of Hope's feathers as she shifted on Sam's shoulder. He could still feel his pulse pounding, his breath coming in uneven bursts, but the moment had passed. The danger was gone. He had made it through the night. But something had changed. For years, Sam had drifted through life like a ghost, unseen, unnoticed. He had learned to shrink into the background, to take up as little space as possible. No one looked at him. No one cared if he was there. And maybe, deep down, he had stopped caring too. But she had seen him. Not as a stranger. Not as a burden. As something worth saving. Hope cooed softly, her small head tilting as she pecked at the loose thread on his collar. It was such a simple thing, so small, so ordinary. But it unraveled something in him. Sam exhaled, his breath curling in the cold air. His hands were still shaking, but not from fear. Something else had taken its place. A feeling he hadn't let himself believe in for a long time. Maybe I'm not alone. He reached up slowly, his fingers brushing against Hope's soft feathers. She didn't flinch. She didn't fly away. She just blinked, letting out a tiny, contented chirp. A smile tugged at the corner of Sam's mouth, small, barely there. But real. He looked around the alley, at the cardboard, the tattered blanket, the empty fast food wrapper by his feet. It wasn't much. It wasn't home. But for the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him. A want. A need. To do more than just survive. He had spent so long waiting, for a change, for a break, for something to pull him out of the pit he had fallen into. He had told himself it was impossible. That no one was coming to help him. But maybe he was wrong. Maybe help didn't come in the way you expected. Maybe it had wings. The city stretched out before him, vast, cold, indifferent. But now, it felt different. Less like a prison. More like a possibility. Sam took a deep breath, straightening his shoulders. His body ached, his clothes were still thin against the cold, and the future was as uncertain as ever. But he wasn't afraid anymore. Because he wasn't facing it alone. Hope let out another soft chirp, fluffing her feathers against the chill. Sam chuckled, the sound foreign in his own ears. Then, with a final glance at the alley that had once been his entire world, he took a step forward. And this time, he didn't look back. The sun was rising. Soft golden light stretched across the pavement, chasing away the cold grip of the night. The city was waking up, cars rumbling in the distance, shop doors unlocking, people emerging from warm homes to start another day. The alley where Sam had nearly lost everything now looked different in the morning light. Less like a battlefield. More like a place he was finally ready to leave behind. Hope was still with him. She perched on his knee, her feathers ruffled from the night before. She wasn't in a rush to fly away. Just sitting there, as if she knew this moment meant something. As if she understood. Sam exhaled, slow and steady. For years, he had been stuck. Trapped in a cycle of survival, drifting from day to day with no direction, no hope, just empty space where a life used to be. But last night changed something. She changed something. A pigeon. A tiny, scrappy, overlooked bird. She had fought for him. Saved him. Chosen to stay. And now, maybe it was his turn. He reached into his pocket, fingers brushing against crumpled bills, the few dollars he had left. Enough for a meal. A hot coffee. Maybe even a bus ride. He had spent years believing he had nowhere to go. But that wasn't true. Not anymore. Hope cooed softly, shifting on his knee. She stretched her wings, flapping once, twice, then turned to look at him, waiting. Sam smiled. A real one this time. The weight of the night, the fear, the loneliness, it was still there. It would always be a part of him. But it didn't have to be all he had. Not as long as she was here. He lifted his arm. Hope hopped onto his wrist, her tiny claws gripping his skin. He stood. And together, they stepped into the light.